My boyfriend of 7 years ghosted me and disappeared from my life without explanation. I still don't know what I'm missing. I'm 31F. My boyfriend was named Kevin. We dated for 7 years. 7 years. That's more than half a decade. That's long enough to build a life with someone, long enough to have plans, long enough to think you know someone completely. 3 months ago, Kevin disappeared. We'd been living together for 5 years. We had an apartment in the city. We had routines. We had plans for the future. We were talking about getting engaged. We were talking about moving to a bigger place. We were talking about starting a family eventually. Then one day, he was just gone. It happened on a Tuesday. I remember because Tuesday was my day to work from home. Kevin had left that morning for work like normal. He kissed me goodbye. He said he'd be home by 7. He said he'd pick up groceries on the way home because we were low on milk. 7 o'clock came and went. No Kevin. 8 o'clock. No Kevin. I texted him. No response. I called him. The call went to voicemail. At first, I thought something had happened. I thought he'd been in an accident. I thought he was hurt. I called the hospitals. I called the police. I called his workplace. His boss said Kevin had left work at 5 o'clock like normal. He seemed fine. He didn't mention anything unusual. Kevin had never come to the apartment. I waited all night. I sat on the couch staring at my phone, waiting for him to text me, waiting for him to call, waiting for him to come through the door with some explanation for why he hadn't shown up. He never did. The next morning, I called his parents. His mother answered. I asked if she'd heard from Kevin. She said no, but he usually didn't call that often. She asked why I was looking for him. I told her he'd disappeared yesterday and I was worried something had happened. His mother went very quiet. Then she asked me to describe what happened. I told her everything. He went to work. He never came home. He won't answer his phone. She said she'd try calling him. She called him back 10 minutes later and said the call went straight to voicemail. She asked if we'd had a fight. I said no. I asked if she knew anything. She said she didn't, but she was concerned. Kevin's father called me later that day. He asked more detailed questions. Had Kevin seemed upset lately? Had we been having problems? Had I noticed anything unusual in his behavior recently? I had to answer no to all of those questions. Kevin had seemed fine. We hadn't been having problems. Everything had been normal as far as I could tell. Kevin's father said they were going to drive to the city, said they'd arrive tomorrow, said they'd help me figure out what was going on. But by the time they arrived, things had become even stranger. Kevin's bank account was emptied. His credit cards had been used at a gas station 50 miles north of the city. His car was gone. His laptop was gone. His phone was apparently off and couldn't be tracked. It became very clear very quickly that Kevin hadn't disappeared. He'd left. Update, 2 weeks later. Kevin's parents and I spent the first week after his disappearance trying to figure out where he'd gone. We checked with his friends. Nobody had heard from him. We checked his social media. Nothing. We tried to track his phone. It was off. We contacted the police to file a missing person report. They didn't seem very interested once they learned that Kevin had apparently emptied his bank account and taken his car. The police officer said that an adult who leaves with their own belongings and their own money isn't technically missing. He said Kevin had the right to leave. He said unless there were signs of foul play or unless Kevin had contacted me threatening to hurt himself, there wasn't much the police could do. I felt completely helpless. Kevin's parents went back home after a week. His mother hugged me before she left and cried. She said she was sorry. She said she didn't understand what was happening. She said Kevin must be going through something. She said he'd come back once he figured out whatever he was dealing with. But as days turned into weeks, it became clear that Kevin wasn't coming back. I had to move out of the apartment. I couldn't afford the rent on my own. I couldn't afford anything on my own. Kevin and I had combined finances. We had a joint account. I had access to it, but it was emptied now. He'd taken his half and more. I had to call my parents and tell them what happened. I had to ask if I could stay with them for a while. I was 30 years old and I was moving back into my childhood bedroom. My mother was furious at Kevin. She called him every name in the book. She said he was a coward. She said he was a terrible person. She said I deserved better. My father just seemed sad. He asked if I'd tried to contact Kevin's family again. I said yes. His parents said they hadn't heard from him either. His younger sister said the same thing. It was like Kevin had completely severed all ties, not just with me but with everyone, not just his current life but his entire existence. I started therapy about a week after moving in with my parents. My therapist's name was Dr. Linda. She asked me a lot of questions about the relationship, about Kevin, about our dynamic, about whether there'd been any warning signs. I had to admit that there probably were warning signs. Kevin had been distant sometimes. He'd been stressed about work. He'd mentioned feeling trapped once or twice, but nothing that suggested he was going to just abandon his entire life. Dr. Linda asked if I thought Kevin was coming back. I said I didn't know. She asked if I wanted him to come back. I had to think about that question for a long time before answering. Did I want him to come back? Did I want the person who'd disappeared without explanation? Did I want someone who could do something that cruel? I told Linda I didn't know. I said part of me was angry at him for leaving, part of me was worried about him, part of me was hurt that he didn't think I was worth an explanation, part of me understood that maybe he needed to leave. Linda said I was allowed to have conflicting feelings. She said grief and anger and confusion could all exist at the same time. Update, 2 months later. I'm 2 months into living with my parents. I found a new apartment that I can afford on my own. I'm moving next week. I'm getting my life together slowly. But I still don't understand why Kevin left. I've spent the last 2 months obsessing over this question. Why? Why would he just leave without explanation? Why wouldn't he at least text me? Why wouldn't he break up with me properly? Why would he just vanish like I meant nothing to him? I've gone through our entire 7-year relationship looking for clues, looking for something I missed, looking for some indication that he was unhappy enough to just disappear. I found an old journal of mine from 3 years ago. In it, I'd written about a fight we had, about how Kevin said he felt like his life was on autopilot, like he was going through the motions but not actually living. I'd written about how I'd tried to talk to him about it but he'd shut down the conversation. I'd forgotten about that fight, but now I'm wondering if that's when things started to change for him, if that's when he started pulling away, if that's when he started planning his escape. Last month, I tried to contact Kevin one more time. I called his phone. It still goes straight to voicemail. His mailbox is full. I sent him an email. It bounced back as undeliverable. His email address apparently no longer exists. I asked his parents if they'd heard from him. His mother started crying when I called. She said they'd hired a private investigator. The investigator had tracked Kevin to a small town in Colorado. He'd apparently rented a house under a fake name. He'd paid cash. He'd completely cut off contact with everyone. His parents said they didn't know what he was running from. They said he'd seemed happy with me. They said they didn't understand why he'd done this. I said I didn't understand either. A week ago, I got a package in the mail. It was addressed to me. No return address. Inside was a stack of papers, bank statements, documentation of our finances, proof that Kevin had paid his half of the rent through the end of the lease, proof that he'd deposited money into our joint account to cover his share of the bills. There was no note, no explanation, no message, just the evidence that he'd at least tried to be fair financially before he left. That almost hurt more than if he'd just stolen everything, because it suggested he wasn't a bad person. It suggested he cared enough to be responsible even as he was abandoning me completely. Update, 4 months later. I'm 4 months into this nightmare now. The initial shock has worn off. The anger has settled into something more like resignation. I've started living my life again. It's different now. It's smaller somehow, less exciting, less hopeful. I've gone on a few dates. Nothing has stuck. I don't know if I'm ready to be with someone else. I don't know if I can trust someone the way I trusted Kevin. I don't know if I'll ever be able to fully open up to another person after what he did. My friends have been supportive, but I can tell they're tired of hearing about it. They keep telling me to move on. They keep telling me that I'm better off without him. They keep telling me that I'll find someone better. But I don't want to move on. I want answers. I want to understand what I did wrong. I want to know what I missed. I want to know why 7 years meant so little that he could just disappear without a word. My therapist keeps telling me that I need to accept that I might never get those answers. She says that sometimes people do things that don't make sense. She says that sometimes people hurt us in ways we can't understand. She says that I need to learn to live with the not knowing. But I can't accept that. I don't want to accept that. The not knowing is worse than any betrayal could be. The silence is louder than any words could be. Last week, I looked at Kevin's Instagram one more time. I hadn't been following him anymore, but I could still search his account. His profile was completely empty. No posts, no bio, no photos. His account exists, but he's erased everything from it. I checked his Facebook. Same thing. Completely wiped clean. It's like he's trying to erase the fact that he ever existed, like he's trying to erase me and our relationship from his own history. I called his parents again. I asked if they'd ever heard from him. His mother said they had. He'd sent them an email about 2 months after he left. He said he was sorry. He said he needed to figure some things out. He said he wasn't in a place where he could be in a relationship. He said they should stop looking for him. He said he was fine and they didn't need to worry. I asked why they hadn't told me about the email. Kevin's mother looked guilty. She said Kevin had asked them not to tell me. She said they'd respected his wishes because they thought maybe he'd come back and they didn't want to complicate things. I felt betrayed all over again. Even his family had kept this from me. Kevin's father spoke up. He said they'd made a mistake not telling me. He said they should have told me immediately. He said he was sorry. It didn't change anything. I was still left without answers. I was still left without understanding. Final update, 7 months later. 7 months have passed since Kevin disappeared. I'm 31 years old and I'm starting over completely. I have my own apartment now. I have a job that I actually like. I have friends who support me. I have a therapist I see twice a week. I'm doing all the things I'm supposed to do to move on with my life. But I still don't have answers. Last month, I got a letter in the mail. It was from Kevin. After 7 months of complete silence, he finally wrote to me. The letter was 2 pages long. I must have read it 100 times. He wrote about how he'd been struggling for years, how he'd felt like he was living someone else's life, how he'd woken up one day and realized he didn't recognize the person he'd become, how he'd panicked and decided the only way to fix it was to disappear completely. He wrote about how he knew it was selfish, he knew it was cruel, he knew I deserved better than to be ghosted by someone I'd spent 7 years with. He said he was sorry. He said he couldn't face me because he knew he'd lose his resolve if he saw me. He said he needed to disappear completely to figure out who he actually was. He wrote about how he was doing better now, how he'd found some peace, how he was learning to live authentically for the first time in his life. He wrote about how he wasn't asking for forgiveness. He said he didn't deserve it. He said he just wanted me to know that his leaving had nothing to do with me. He said I was a wonderful person and he was grateful for the 7 years we had together, but he needed to become someone new and he couldn't do that while staying in his old life. The letter ended with him saying he hoped I'd find happiness. He hoped I'd find someone who could be fully present with me. He hoped I'd forgive him eventually, even if he didn't deserve it. There was no return address, no way to contact him, just words on a page explaining everything and nothing simultaneously. I cried when I read the letter. I cried angry tears and sad tears and confused tears all at the same time. I still don't fully understand why he left. I still don't fully understand how he could have done this to me. I still don't understand how he could have been so selfish and cruel. But now I have a partial explanation. Now I know that his leaving wasn't about me. It was about him. It was about his own struggles with identity and authenticity. It was about his own desperate need to escape his life. That doesn't make it okay. That doesn't make the pain go away. That doesn't give me back the 7 years I invested in someone who couldn't even break up with me properly. But it does give me something. It gives me understanding. Even if it's incomplete, it gives me closure. Even if it's not the closure I wanted, it gives me the knowledge that I didn't do something terrible enough to deserve being ghosted by someone I loved. I'm learning to accept that some questions don't have good answers. I'm learning to live with the incomplete story. I'm learning to move forward even though I don't fully understand what happened. Kevin is somewhere in Colorado living a new life under a new identity probably. I'm here rebuilding my old life into something new. We're both moving on. We're both trying to figure out who we are and who we want to be. We're just doing it separately now. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him for what he did. I don't know if I'll ever fully move past this. I know that I'm doing better than I was 7 months ago. I know that I'm stronger now than I was before. I know that I'm learning to trust myself again, even if I can't trust him. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough and who we want to be. We're just doing it separately now. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him for what he did. I don't know if I'll ever fully move past this. I know that I'm doing better than I was 7 months ago. I know that I'm stronger now than I was before. I know that I'm learning to trust myself again, even if I can't trust him. And maybe that's enough. Maybe that has to be enough.